Most business owners don't lack discipline. They're drowning in responsibility. Today, we're going to talk about exactly this, how you are carrying the weight of so much responsibility, and that while you may be hearing from the outside, you just need to be more disciplined, you need to be more structured, you need a morning routine, all the things. It's not actually true. There's one thing that you do need that's going to help you stop feeling like you're drowning, and I'm going to let you in on the secret. I'm Melissa Franks, your host of the Opt-in podcast, and today we're talking about how you move away from the mindset of I just need more discipline, to what I really need to be successful is fill in the blank. So we're taught this in education, we're taught this in sports, we are taught this in the business landscape, that success equals hustle, grit, discipline, going to the ends of the earth, super late nights, super early mornings, sacrifice. We're taught that all of those things, when followed through with, are going to deliver the success that you're looking for. And then when everything falls apart, when we become exhausted, when we're sick, when we're not seeing the results that we want, we assume that we're the problem. We're just not disciplined enough. We're not hustling hard enough. We don't have grit. We're not the right person in our DNA to succeed. And the challenge is with this line of thinking that discipline is a finite resource. Motivation is a finite resource. It's not something that's unlimited. It's not something that you can continue to scale and advance and grow. And so when you hit your max, whatever that is for you, you're going to feel like you're not enough. The reality is that if you can create systems inside of your business and inside of your life, those can scale. You don't need to focus so much on discipline and hustle and grit and motivation. What you really need to be focused on is, how am I doing these things? How is my business doing these things? So the problem isn't that you just need to try harder. The problem is that your business that you have built relies on you too much. The problem is that no matter how disciplined and how focused and how much training you give yourself, the business actually needs you to move forward. So you need to start to shift that paradigm. You need to invite in other ways of thinking and doing, and you need to stop focusing so much on hustle, grit, discipline, and motivation. And instead you need to start focusing on what's it really going to take for me to continue to sustain this level of success that I have and to continue to grow, if that is your goal. Discipline itself is a trap. Now, men and women listen to this podcast, but I want to make a specific statement here, because for whatever reason, there is a lot of focus around women needing to be more disciplined. My theory is, my point of view is that the reason that there's so much content and focus around the need for women to be more disciplined is because they're carrying more. They tend to carry more of the caregiver weight, whatever that is, whether it's caregiving parents or elderly family members or children or other people in their lives. They tend to be yes machines in the business setting and can get overwhelmed. But discipline's a trap for everybody. So I don't want us to spend the entire conversation here talking about gender constraints, and this isn't the purpose of that. What I want us to look at underpinning why discipline is such a trap is what's actually going on. In order to have rigid discipline, one of the things that you need to be doing is constantly making decisions. And that is exhausting. I remember when I was in the corporate world, I would come home at the end of like a 14-hour day and be faced with 3 small children and a busy household. And the last thing I could do was figure out what to make for dinner. Like could not make one more decision. And that's what decision fatigue is. When you actually look at what's happening on a daily basis, you're making hundreds of micro decisions from the moment you get up until the moment you go to bed. Everything is a decision. What do I wear today? Do I go to the gym now or do I go to the gym later? Do I have a third cup of coffee or do I skip it? Do I put electrolytes in my water or do I not? Every single thing you are doing is a decision. What do I want for lunch? What do I want for dinner? And the more decisions that you require of yourself, the more discipline you're requiring of yourself, the more decision fatigue you're going to get. And you can absolutely be disciplined. You can absolutely have a schedule. You can absolutely have a focus. And it fails more often than not because real life gets in the way. If you have kids, you know best laid plans never going to pan out. If you have anybody in your life that you live with or you're in a relationship with of any kind, family member or whatever, you know things will come up for them that are going to sidetrack you and derail whatever you had planned. Your health may be a consideration. There may be global crises. There may be a national disaster. Like, you never know what's going to happen, but discipline will always break. And the reason that it will always break is because it only works when the conditions are perfect. And often what we talk about is how can we just do more? How can we carry more? So instead of saying, let's redesign it, let's reconsider what we're doing here, what's actually happening is you're saying, well, shit just hit the fan. That's okay. I'll just add on another thing to do. One of my favorite visuals, and this used to be me, by the way, in the very first home that I lived in that wasn't an apartment, there were 20 steps to get to the front door, and they were pretty steep. We didn't have a garage, and like the only way in was that. And so what I would do when I would go to the grocery store is I would literally stack bags on each arm so that I only had to make the trip once. And by the time I got to the front door where I had to unlock the door, I was exhausted. I was buried alive. I was carrying the weight of so much that I would literally just dump it on the doorstep. And then what would happen is I would have to make like 1,000 small trips in and out. Now, that was not the ideal system to follow because I was so exhausted. My muscles were so fatigued that the rest of the work was very, very difficult. There were other ways. There's ways I could have redesigned that. But this visual is really what happens when life gets in the way. You have a process for how you do things. You have a disciplined way of doing things. And then as soon as more comes in or different comes in, you just figure out how to carry it. And we also get external validation for doing it. There is this world in which hustle culture is idealized, where over-functioning, where lack of sleep, where like pushing it to the ends of the earth, where like really achieving exhaustion is celebrated. There are many, many business coaches out there in the world today that basically say in order to get the success that I have, you need to give up your life. You need to be heavily disciplined and you need to not sleep and you need to not take care of yourself. And that's just over-functioning. It's not sustainable leadership. You cannot do that forever. There's a reason that marathon runners have anywhere from a 4-month to year-long plan before they run a race. And that is because incrementally, they are increasing their load over time. They're running longer and they're running differently. And then they're resting and then they're coming back and doing it again. But there's this methodical system and plan. They have discipline, but what's not talked about is that the discipline and training for the race actually includes a ton of rest. It actually includes a ton of variability so that things stay interesting. And that's what a sustainable system looks like. That's what getting results in the long term looks like. This whole 100-yard dash, get to the finish line, run as fast as you can until you collapse, ultimately that's going to kill your business, that's going to kill you, and you're going to end up with nothing in return. If your business collapses the moment that you step back, I want to be very transparent with you, that's not a discipline problem. It's just a design flaw. This isn't that you aren't working hard enough. It's that you aren't organized inside of the business in such a way to where it doesn't rely on you for everything. Now, you may be a solopreneur and your business may need to rely on you for everything because it's just you. And that's the season that you're in. As soon as you bring somebody else in, or 2 somebodies, or 5 somebodies, then and only then should you be really looking at this and saying, when I step away, what happens? And if something stops, if something falls apart, then it's an opportunity for improvement. Often in many businesses, what I will see is that the teams can't progress because they can't make a decision without the owner. And if that's your business, what that means is that you literally cannot have anything happen in your business without you. And that is a constraint. That will stop your progress. That will over time create employee turnover. It will create a contracting business, and it's going to exhaust you. So if you agree with the thesis that we don't need more discipline, we need better systems. If you agree with the thesis that hustle isn't working and something else needs to, that it's not a grit or a motivation problem, it's a something else problem, then what we need to focus on is what systems actually do so that you can determine what systems to implement. A system, very simply, is anything that removes the need to decide the same thing twice. That's it. A system is anything that removes the need to decide the same thing twice. So one of the things that I recommend to all of my clients, and we ask them to do it often when the priority number one is for them to get out of the day-to-day of running of the business, is for them to do a time study. And we don't just have them write down how they're spending their time, because that's interesting, and we absolutely know that. What we also want to know is why they spent their time doing that. And that helps identify what decisions they're taking, what direction they're giving. And as soon as we start to see repetition, then we know, oh, well, you're always giving this same type of feedback. You're always being brought in to make this decision. You're always, so how do we remove you from that? Who do we give that to? What needs to happen or what needs to be true in order for you to no longer be involved? So here are some examples of things that we see where the same decision could be taken multiple times. One of the examples is during the sales process. And we have worked with quite a few clients that have some sort of warm contact with the person that they're selling to. And a question that comes up often is, how do I know that this person is really qualified and I should close the deal with them? And so then what happens is the owner comes back in and they say, well, give me the recording of the call, walk me through the scenario, why do you have concerns? And there's like a whole meeting about this one client, this one buyer. And generally speaking, the salesperson knew that it was good or not to begin with. But the reason that the owner got pulled in was because there was nothing written down. There was no guardrails. There was no qualification and disqualification requirements. And so what we find in those businesses, that depending on the volume of sales that are happening, up to 50% of the owner's time could actually be spent with the sales team, helping them qualify or disqualify and closing deals. Now, of course, closing deals is important. However, in this scenario, the sales team is perfectly capable of closing the deals. What they need is a system to follow, a checklist, and some clarity. And then autonomy to do it. And so what we do is we come in and we say, okay, so what are the patterns? Owner, when you're assessing these things, what is the checklist in your head that you go through? And then we give that to the sales team. And then we say, what are the red flags and what are the green flags? And we make sure that everybody has that same playbook. And then once they do, they get to go off into the world and do their sales thing, and the owner gets to go do something else. When you are creating a system so that you can eliminate deciding the same thing over and over and over again, really what you're doing is creating standardized ways of doing things. So you are creating a standard way that you're following up with leads. You're creating standard ways to handle objections from your current clients. You are creating a standard way to deal with returns. Those are all things that you can create a system around so that you can remove yourself from it. Discipline asks, will I remember? Will I feel like? And then systems say, this just happens. So really what happens is that when you're in the discipline stage, you're asking yourself a lot of questions. What should I do? How should this work? What's going on? What makes the most sense? And systems are just how it's done. There is no decision-making happening. This is just the way that we want things to go. It's how you stop negotiating with yourself every day in the end. So when we work with an owner that is exhausted, and we have a few, usually what happens is they're exhausted and the business is stuck. And so they can't figure out what to do. They're like, I'm working as hard as I possibly can. I'm not sleeping. I don't know what to do to steer the business. The first thing that we do is we really take a look, like I said, at how they're spending their time. We also take a look at how the rest of the team is spending time. And what we usually uncover when a business is stuck is that everything in the business relies on the owner. And when everything in the business relies on the owner, it slows everything else down and your team is less productive. So what we do, and we did this for one specific client that was incredibly frustrated that work was not getting done on time. So timelines were laid out and the team just wasn't meeting deadlines. They just weren't. And when we got in there and we really assessed what was happening, we realized that every task was being reviewed by the owner and getting a yes, this is good enough, or no, this is not. And that wasn't necessary. This had happened because during the training process of new employees, that check and balance was there. There was a constant feedback loop and cycle to make sure that there was quality in place. That just had never been undone. And so what we did is we identified that there was actually a role missing in the business. We needed somebody to do quality assurance, and it did not need to be the owner. The wrinkle here was that this process happened like physically on paper, and the owner was only available 3 days a week and wasn't even in the office 3 days a week. So they were really limited to like maybe a day of getting the feedback at the task level. So the 4 other days they couldn't be productive. So we identified, hey, you need a new role. You need a quality assurance role, and you need a quality assurance role for a couple of departments. And so we set about writing the job description, figuring out what skill sets we need, and then hiring the quality assurance people. What that did is it removed the owner from QA. It allowed the team to have somebody that was incredibly responsive and available 5 days a week to check their work and do their things and push things along. And it started to create on-time delivery. Because the bottleneck wasn't that they didn't know how to do it. The bottleneck wasn't that they didn't know how to do it with quality. The bottleneck was that they needed somebody to check their work who didn't have time to check their work. It was a really simple solution to what appeared to be an incredibly complex problem. The owner was exhausted and basically doing the work of 4 people on their own because they couldn't ensure that things were going to get done on time, so they just did it themselves. As soon as we installed these new roles, as soon as we installed a quality assurance plan, things changed very quickly. So like I said, what wasn't working was having the owner touch everything. The system that was missing was a quality assurance system that was staffed appropriately. And then once we implemented that, they actually started to deliver results on time and faster than they had before. And it's not because the team became more disciplined. It's not because the owner became more disciplined. It's because we just stopped asking the owner to do something that they absolutely couldn't do. We stopped looking for heroics to save the day, and instead we implemented a system and a practice and people, in this case, that would ensure that the work was done. The other cool thing is that once you're able to do that, it frees up the owner's time to do other things, to bring on more business, to have more sales conversations, to develop more products, to do whatever. When you solve constraints like this, you are literally buying back time for yourself to go do other things that are more important. If you think that this might be you, if you think that you might be relying on discipline instead of systems, I want you to consider just a few things, because there are 3 signs that you really are, not implementing systems in the business. So sign number 1 is you're constantly reminding yourself or your team to do the same things? Do you feel like you keep saying the same thing, you keep asking the same questions, you keep following up on the same tasks over and over and over again? If yes, there's not a system, you're relying on discipline. Do you feel and do you experience that progress only happens when you're in peak energy mode? The business only grows when I'm firing on all cylinders. The team only gets really productive when I'm firing on all cylinders. Is the rhythm and speed inside of the company dependent upon your energy level? And the third sign that you're relying on discipline instead of systems is that you're feeling behind even when you're working as hard as you can. We've all been there, myself included. One other thing to consider, this requires a little bit more self-awareness than those three, is if you're the bottleneck for decisions, approvals, or follow-up, you're relying on discipline, not systems. I'm guessing that one of these 3 or 4 really hit home for you if you're listening to this podcast, and it's okay because we're all there. We started this thing from nothing and it was just us. And it's, in the beginning, discipline's needed. You're figuring stuff out. You don't know what's going to work. You haven't done anything twice. And you're constantly in a world of iteration and creation as you grow the business. There is no mile marker. There is no revenue target. There is no team size. When you get there, it declares time to develop systems, time to delegate, time to move away from what worked, what got you there, to go into the future. There is no indicator. And that's why so many owners struggle, because that the hustle, the hard work, the late nights, the agonizing decisions, the making mistakes, the picking yourself back up is what got you to your level of success that you're at now. And you believe that you just need to keep going that way in order to continue to grow. The reality is that you don't. The reality is that in order to push through to the next level, you have to change. The way that you work needs to be different. Your role and how you show up in the business evolves. And just because there isn't a place for a bell to be rung to say this is the time, or there's not a graduation ceremony, at the point where any of these signs are really resonating with you, it's already past time for you to implement systems. You are already the bottleneck, and this is your invitation right now for you to do something about it. So your next question is, okay, I get it. I'm seeing, oh shit, that's me. I've got to do something. Please tell me that I don't have to just languish in this world of pain and suffering anymore. You do not. You do not. All you need to do is pick one thing. That's it. Pick one area that you're going to remove yourself from, and you're going to create a system around. Are you going to remove yourself from sales follow-up? Are you going to remove yourself from setting weekly priorities? Are you going to remove yourself from capacity planning? Ask yourself, what am I personally holding together with effort right now? That's where the system is missing. And that's where you start. What you have to remember is that implementing systems also comes with a change management impact. What do I mean? When you go from the one doing the doing to giving other people the doing to do, or doing something exactly the same over and over and over again, if you're doing the doing, there's a change curve. And so the reason that I say to pick one at a time is because what's going to happen is you're going to say, this is the thing that I'm going to pull myself out of. This is the thing I'm going to write the process for. This is the thing I'm going to systematize. This is the thing I'm going to delegate, however you want to do that. But you do need to write down how to do it in order to delegate it. So let's just be clear there. And so then you get it all documented. And then you either need to train yourself or you need to train somebody else. And then you need to let them follow it and screw up and get feedback. And then you need to let them do it again and screw up and get feedback. And you need to let them do it again and then get it. And when all of that is done, then you go to the next thing. What you do not want to do is change everything at the same time. Say, I am too involved in these 5 things, so we're going to create systems and processes and we're going to push it out. You know why? Because you can't quality control the 5 changes that you made simultaneously. Your team can't absorb that much change. and you're going to dramatically impact the client experience. I know that you're like, these are back office things and nobody's going to know and like whatever. It does not matter. When your team is distracted, your clients know, whether they are buying a widget or they are buying a service. So my strong recommendation to you is, if you know you need to implement systems in your business, do one at a time. And hey, from somebody who's done this her entire career, this is just some advice to you. If you are implementing a new system or process, do it manually first. Do not go buy a piece of technology and say, I'm just going to automate it. Because you know what you're going to do is you're going to automate the thing that's broken, or you're going to implement an out-of-the-box process that doesn't work for your team. Write it down, understand exactly how it should work, optimize it, then find a technology solution to bring it into a faster sense of reality, if that's what you want to do. That's just my real world experience. Take it or leave it if you want. I do often see an overinvest in tech when the choice is to just buy the tech and not worry about the system. You do you, that's on you, right? This is the hardest thing about owning and running a business, is understanding when it's a season of push and grind and hustle, and when it's a season of stabilization and systematizing and consistency. And what is true is that every growth ladder requires both things. What is true is that to grow, there will be periods of hustle, grit, determination, hard work, late nights, etc. And then what comes after that growth period is stabilization, where things are systematized, they're repeatable, they're delegated, and you're going to continue to do this step ladder. And so the hardest thing to understand is where you are. And this often takes somebody else to look inside and give you a suggestion. You don't have to do this alone. Because what will happen is, as you become exhausted and as you have a lack of clarity around, is this a season of grind or is this a season of stabilization, you're going to feel lazy. You are not. You're going to feel unmotivated. You are not. You're going to feel like running this business is just too much to ask of one person. It's not. It's because sustainable success isn't built on discipline and hustle and grit. It's built on design, repeatable systems, a rhythm and cadence that's well understood by all. You're not lazy. Not by a long shot. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten this far to begin with. So if you're ready to stop white knuckling the business and you don't really know what to do, we're here for you. On Call COO solves these challenges in businesses every single day. Every business, whether they come to us because this is what's going on or not, we address this at some point during our relationship. We're experts at getting you out of the fight or flight mode and getting you into a steady rhythm of getting the business to run so that you can focus on growth. If this is something that you want to explore further, in the show notes, there is a link for a free consultation call where we can talk through this and we can determine where you are. Are you in that hustle and grind stage, or you in that stabilization phase, and what potentially would be helpful to your business and to you so that you're not so exhausted and overwhelmed. I just want to encourage you that it is really, really possible for you to love your business and for it to grow and for you to have the life that you aspire to have all at the same time. You just need to do a little bit of work and a little bit of standardizing in order to make that come to life. Until next time, friends, please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are capable, and I believe in you.